Hello, I'm United States Senator Bill Cassidy with the honor of representing the great state of Louisiana. I'm reading a book by an author from Shreveport, Louisiana. And the name of the book is Fantastic Flying Books, Mr. Morris Lessmore, and it's written by William Joyce. And so, again, from Shreveport, Louisiana, so I'm honored to read it today. Morris Lessmore loved words. He loved stories. He loved books. His life was a book of his own writing, one orderly page after another. He would open it every morning and write of his joys and sorrows and of all that he knew and everything that he hoped for. But every story has its upsets. And one day the sky darkened, the winds blew and blew, and you see Warren Lessmore flying through the sky with all the houses and books flipping every place. Till everything Morris knew was scattered, even the words of his book. He didn't know what to do or which way to go, so he began to wonder and wonder. Then a happy bit of happenstance came his way. Rather than looking down as become his habit, Morris Lessmore looked up, and drifting through the sky above him, Morris saw a lovely lady, and she was being pulled along by a festive squadron of flying books. Isn't she pretty? Isn't she pretty? And he's sitting there all black and white, and she's full of color. It's a cute story. Morris wondered if his book could fly, but it couldn't. It only would fall flat to the ground with a depressing thud. Now, the flying lady knew that Morris simply needed a good story, so she sent him her favorite. The book was an amiable fellow, and it urged Morris to follow along. The book's in color, and Morris is in old black and white. The book led him to an extraordinary building where many books apparently nested. Morris slowly walked inside and discovered the most mysterious and inviting room he had ever seen. It was filled with fluttering of countless pages, and Morris could hear the faint chatter of 1,000 different stories, as if each book was whispering an invitation to adventure. Look at these books flying around. Ooh, Morris is in color now. Ooh, that's pretty cool. Morris is becoming colorful.
Hello, I'm Jim Davis, the director of the Louisiana Center for the Book in the State Library of Louisiana, our state's affiliate of the Library of Congress Center for the Book, whose mission is to promote books, reading, libraries, and literacy nationwide, and that's our center's mission on the state level. The book featured today is The Fantastic Flying Books of Mr. Morris Lessmore by William Joyce, a native of Shreveport, Louisiana. He is a writer, illustrator, and filmmaker whose work has appeared on numerous covers of the New Yorker magazine and who has won 6 Emmys, 3 Annies, and an Academy Award. Joyce began his career as a children's book author, illustrator in 1981 and published his first self-illustrated work, George Shrinks, in 1985. Today, he is the award-winning author-illustrator of more than 50 best-selling children's books and novels, which have been translated into over 40 languages. Howdy, Bill Joyce.
Well, hey, Jim Davis, how are you doing?
It's good to see you.
Good to be seen.
Could you tell us the story behind the story of Morris Lessmore and about some of your influences?
Sure. I mean, that book came to me out of the blue on a plane ride to New York to see a friend who had been my mentor at Harper Collins Publishing House. And, you know, he was there. His name was Bill Morris. And he had been at Harper Collins since they were called Harper Brothers. He'd been there since 1949. He's one of those old school publishing guys And, the sort of tweed jacket, dapper, well-read, smart as a whip, dry-witted fellas. And so it was toward the end of, it was at the end of his career and the end of his life. He found he was dying of cancer, and I wanted to see him. And so I heard he was sick, and I got on a plane to go see him. And while I was on the plane, this story came to me, The Fantastic Flying Books of Morris Lessmore. And it just was a play on Bill Morris's name. And Bill was a really sort of diminutive fellow. He was probably just barely 5 feet tall, but he had this huge reputation in publishing. Cast a giant shadow, as they say, over the publishing industry, a very benevolent shadow. And so this story just was playing on the fact that he was short but magnificent, and he was very succinct, in his conversation and his witticism. So it just made a sort of sense of calling the main character Morris Lessmore, because in the case of Bill Morris, less was more. And but then again, it's a lot of what children's books are, in the subtext of children's books is that you can put a lot in them, but without very much text, and so it just seemed right. And it's totally instinctual, and the story tumbled out on that plane ride, and I sketched it out pretty much, and almost and it's almost the same as the final book in many ways.
Wow.
And it all happened in that 2-hour plane ride. And but I got to New York, landed, went straight to his apartment, and he had a hospital bed set up there, and we sat and visited in this room surrounded by, tens of thousands of books, and just had a really lovely visit. And the end of it, I told him, well, I wrote this story about you, Bill, and I got to read it to him, and he was very touched. It was really sweet.
Wow.
And then he died 3 days later.
Oh my goodness.
And then Hurricane Katrina, I was working on the book, and Hurricane Katrina happened. And that ended up threading into the story a little bit. Because I remember going down to New Orleans not long after the storm, and I was putting together a photography exhibit of just where we went and just interviewed people in the shelters about what happened to them, tell your story. And we made a couple of trips down to New Orleans during that. And one thing that struck me was how many, like, almost dunes of books we found there. It seemed like the debris sort of clustered together in similar things. Like you find huge drifts of refrigerators and kitchen appliances. Somehow the waters, I don't know, the floodwaters sort of sifted things in this way that categorized them by similarity in some strange way. I found a number of like these just house-sized piles of books that were all gray. You couldn't a muddy gray, right? And you couldn't read the pages. All the words were gone basically. And it just struck me like these are the books from everybody's houses and from the libraries and from businesses and their stories have been wiped clean in a way. And I wanted that to be a part of the book as well. And so it dovetailed sort of organically into the story.
I was thinking your readers, especially your young readers, would be interested in finding out how you began writing and illustrating books.
Well, I drew all the time, and from the time I was like, I don't even, maybe before I spoke, I think I was drawing. And my father had a clothing store, and he would bring home these pieces of cardboard, white cardboard, that were used to like put behind shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're really nice sheets of paper, big, and it'd just be piles of them. And I would just draw and draw and draw those things, and stories would evolve, right? And sometimes they, and I've seen kids, something kids do a lot actually, and always have, evidently, is you start on one side of the paper if it's a wide sheet, and you just sort of draw a story across the page, and the things that start out on the left side, keep repeating as you go along. And so I was making up stories on single sheets of paper, even back then. But the first specific story that I told was for the a fourth grade contest, to see what kid could write the best kids book at my school. And I thought I had a dynamite idea that I'd been thinking about for a while. I'd always liked science fiction and stuff, and so I sort of combined a bunch of things. Like I hated math, but I love science fiction. I love monster movies, and so I mushed all that together into one thing, because that's what the librarian said. I was like, "What should I write about?" And she said, "You should write about what you know." And I'm like, "Well, what I know is I hate math, and I love monsters, and I love UFOs and science fiction." And she said, "Well, then you know what to write about. Even if you don't know those aren't facts, but they're things in your mind that you enjoy. Write about that." So I put it all together in this thing called a story called Billy's Booger, and it's about a kid. It was very autobiographical. The kid's name's Billy. My name was Bill, and Billy hates math, and I hated math, and he is walking home from school one day, and he gets hit in the head by a meteorite. And that meteorite is from planet Snotron, and it gave Billy's boogers superpowers. And the boogers were really good at math, and they had super strength, and they could fly. And eventually Billy could fly as well. And he even developed chocolate ray vision, where any food that he didn't like Brussels sprouts or green beans, that if he stared at them with his chocolate ray vision, they would turn to chocolate and taste good. And so I wrote this story, and in the story that Billy's bad at math, just like I was, and the boogers help him out with math and save the day and from bad aliens that have come to take over the earth. But Billy has to keep his identity secret, and so whenever he would, danger would come, he would have to, say, "I have to go to the bathroom," and the teacher, okay, and then he would slip out, go to the bathroom, and put on his cape and fly away and go save the world and come back, and the boogers would fly out of his nose and fight the aliens with him, and then when it was time to come back and resume his identity as an average boy, the boogers would fly back up in his nose and hide out there until needed. And I did it all in green crayon and green felt tip pen. And I did not win this contest. In fact, my parents were called in for a not just a teacher parent conference, but a principal parent conference. And where it was like I had to promise not to draw boogers in school anymore. And but the librarian, they put all the books that were entered in the contest into the library, into the actual school library there at my elementary school. And a few weeks after this contest, and I was kind of crushed that not only have I lost, but I didn't even get like an honorable mention. And she said, "Don't feel bad, because your book is the most checked out book in the library." And so that made me feel really good. It was like, well, I kind of got in trouble, but everybody likes my book. It was a strangely empowering moment for a fourth grader.
That is a wonderful story. And hooray for librarians, huh?
There you go, man. There you go. I mean, there's a couple of English teachers and a couple of librarians that really said, this is something you can do. And you've got some talent there. It's a peculiar talent, but yeah, it's
And
something.
see where you are now.
There you go. It's kind of funny.
Our time is about out, and
Mine too.
yeah, just want to say how much I appreciate your assistant Mally and Robert Wilson with the Louisiana Center for the Book, and of course you for allowing this to happen.
Well,
We appreciate it, and we love your books, and we love your films, and we will remain fans and look forward to what's coming next.
well, thank you so much, Jim. I really treasure our friendship and our love of books. And I only get to see Robbie for a second there, but it was nice to see him again. And thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for whoever chose Morris Lessmore for this. It's a big honor. Thank you.